So let's do it. Mark, how's it going, my friend?
It's going well. I'm feeling like a lot of like background envy right now. Everyone else has some cool stonework, some boxes of games, and I just have a good closet and undecorated walls. But we recently moved, and I was saying in the staging room that as a consequence, I came across a bunch of old memorabilia from game projects, which felt fateful for today. So I was going through memory lane and looking at old magazines about Primordia and stuff.
Nostalgia. Nostalgia. Going
Yeah,
back, right?
it's the currency of the day.
Well, why don't you tell us
Certainly is.
about your game so we can have nostalgia ourselves?
Sure. So, and James, who's instrumental. We have two of the three Musketeers. Can tell the real horror stories of it. But so we made Primordia. We started 12 years ago. The idea behind it was we're going to make a game in 2 weeks and release it for free. And 2.5 years of development later, we did release a game, not for free. And it would have probably been 2.5 decades, except like 2.5 months into it. At that point, the team was me and Victor Flug, the artist, visionary behind the world, the look and feel. Realized we couldn't really program it ourselves. We needed someone who actually knew what he was doing. Enlisted James, who kind of knew what he was doing at least.
I mean,
Uh,
yeah, that's a
We're
stress at the
learning on the
time.
road.
I think I
uh,
pretended like I knew what I was doing, but yeah.
Fake
Fake
it
it
till you
till you
make
make
it.
it, right?
Mhm. I
Yeah,
think so many of us are doing that out there in development and in all of this sort of multimedia world. And you can't do it right till you've done it wrong. And
Yeah.
even wrong's actually not that bad a lot of the time, whatever it is.
I think James is like Street Fighter 2. So like he started out as Street Fighter, but then like
oh
the
wow.
next project he was Super Street Fighter. And then it was like, well, where do we go from there? So it's Super Street Fighter 2 Alpha Edition. But where do we go from there? And now he's like the version where there's constant flashing on the screen and like five overpowered characters have been added. That's the level we're at now. We're soon going to hit Street Fighter 3, which is not going to be very good. But as long as he stays where he is.
Oh
Well, how
man.
did you guys get together and start Wormwood Studios? What's kind of the story behind the brand?
Um, well, Vic said, "Can someone help with a game project?" And we said yes.
And the
And
same team then since the beginning? I mean, you guys are the core crew, or have you added or subtracted?
well, you really, I mean, some people could make a game with just three people, but none of our games is just the three of us. So Primordia, Watched Eye published it. Nathaniel Chambers did the soundtrack. Kim Bookbinder sang the two songs in the game, and like 15 people provided voice acting for it. 30 people tested it. We had Emily Morganti doing PR for it. So in that sense, and that sort of universe around the core three is there's always a group like that for each project, but that has changed project to project, and the three of us have stayed consistent. Except that James made a game entirely on his own
Oh no,
until I
please.
have you.
Yeah, that's it. But I think what really was the trick to Wormwood Studios, I think it's like a one-off, is that in Adventure Game Studio forums, like the typical thing you would see is I can code or I can, write a game, but I don't have the art. So for the first time, like back in 2009, which was very unlikely, like somebody posted like I can do background and it wasn't MS Paint, and I was like, oh, this looks amazing. I should get on board on that. And then they already like not that they didn't have a coder, but they didn't need a coder. So I said, if you really need help down the line, let me know if you need anything. And then I just started doing like a simple puzzle in the game, like just one room was the first thing I did in the game. And then it was more and more and more and more. And then I asked, Victor, the artist, like, how long is this gonna take? And he said 3 months. And I believe at the time Mark was like newlywed or
Oh,
like close to that.
New
saying something.
New baby. It was, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and by the time he finished the game, his kids were in, university and had a job. But, yeah, that took a while.
Sounds like my
My
kitchen
older daughter
renovation.
voiced, yeah, my older daughter voiced one of the characters. It's like the
Aw.
robot that says, "Strange robot, go away, go back to spooky place." She both wrote and delivered that line at age 2. So she was like we had 2 production babies.
Aw.
It's all in the family. So we have Grundislav Games wanting to know if you need help breaking out of jail. Are you good? Are you good, my friends?
Oh no,
The
yeah.
background,
he's
yes, like with the prison jumpsuits.
He's been digging for a while, but he stopped partway through. We're here on the stream. Like,
Well, the thing is, this part of the house that I'm in, this was renovated because I was on vacation, so it's like it doesn't have good lighting. So I figured if I was like putting the camera closer to the wall, that would work.
that's classy. The stonework is
It's
nice.
cool.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
needing
the
that.
King's Quest.
Yeah, if you can see, there's one larger stone, and if you strike that with a hammer, it cracks open, and through it, you find the next puzzle.
Well, I was gonna say it reminds me of the Full Throttle puzzle, where you have to kick like every single stone, and then you can make your way into whatever room there was. Yeah, see, and here comes comes the game right there.
I believe in Anavao there was also a puzzle with the brick wall where you had to like use a butter knife, I believe, to get a brick out. So I think Epiphany also had a brick puzzle, and I'm pretty sure like every Sierra game had a puzzle or something
Somewhere
like
in
that.
it.
Yeah. But no, when we made Strangeland, they said, hey, like Vic said and Mark said, hey, James, you want to go back into making games? We have this idea for a game, for a competition. And that's when I looked at my calendar and said, okay, the next 4 years are going to be clear for the project.
Yeah, the 1 week game jam that we signed up for.
I knew already. I knew where this was going.
Strangeland is beautiful. It almost took me to a game like Sanitarium in a way, just in the graphical style and kind of the ideas of the other world and that kind of it's like eerie but effective and in that direction. It's beautiful game. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, that was there is a funny thing. Sorry, Mark, but it's funny because of course we upped the resolution, but then Vic said that he wanted to airbrush the whole thing, which he then proceeded to do, like using airbrush to draw the game, and then he realized that that doesn't work, so he redrew the whole thing. There was another style that he was aiming. I believe. I could be wrong. He might hate it. He will hate it.
No, I think he has said that publicly himself, so he's not going to hate you for it.
Okay.
I mean, it's an interesting. So I think my favorite part of making games with this team is that it is impossible really to figure out where one person stops and another one starts in terms of elements of the game. So to me, like the game's narrative, very, very personal narrative. The impetus for it was that both my grandparents died in 2 weeks of each other. My grandfather had been taking care of my grandmother, who had been suffering from dementia for many years. And after she died, he basically felt like he no longer had to be alive. And he passed away peacefully a couple weeks later. And so to me, like it's hard for me to imagine like a more personal set of narratives, and the imagery is all things that have been important to me throughout my life. But then you collaborate with people, and all of Vic's art creates its own spin on all of those concepts. So the idea of setting it in a carnival was his. The idea of having the protagonist in a straitjacket was his, and those elements create this like immediate resonance with other things, right? Whether it's with Darkseid 2 or with Sanitarium, and that it's where that like synthesis hits that there's meaning, and like all of the scenes in the game, ultimately it's James who's doing the timing, it's James who's doing the visual effects, and so like some of the I think the most effective moments are these visual effects. There's like you're falling down a well, for instance, and like some lights start to emerge, and that was like a
I just didn't want to interrupt
technically
anybody. Sorry, my bad.
it was like a technically impossible thing to do in AGS. I was like, could it look better? And James was like, it can't look better. And then a week later, it would look better. And then a week later, it would look better. And
That's magic.
yeah, and so whose scene is that scene? Like it's, some of Vic's graphics, some of James's direction, some of my writing. And it's a synthesis of all three of us.
And
It really is.
I was going to say the graphics are stunningly, scaringly beautiful. It's very unique, and I'm digging it. I haven't had an opportunity to play it, but you've talked me into playing it for sure.
I think you're going to be your game. If your wish list was long before, after all of this day, it's going to just explode again for all of us, right? So
I might be too scared to play it. Oh my goodness! Like this is like
it's intense, right? It's
is,
beautiful.
like, absolutely perfect for this time of year, right? Strangeland.
I think it's going on sale
Mark,
for the Halloween.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I just had a question for you. How much of like H.P. Lovecraft influenced Strangeland? Because that was immediately what I thought of when I, read the synopsis. I haven't personally played it yet either, but I mean, I was immediately drawn to it because of the art, story, and it was like, wow, there's at least something of H.P. Lovecraft, and I wondered how much of that was intentional or
I would say not much intentionally from Lovecraft. Ray Bradbury was a very big inspiration. Edgar Allan Poe and Mervyn Peake, who wrote the Gormenghast series. So initially I envisioned the game's world being more of a sort of gothic manor like Gormenghast. And then Vic had this idea for a carnival, and you really like a horror carnival is like instantly my mind goes to Bradbury. And like I had read his short stories. Obviously, something Wicked This Way Comes is like his ultimate carnival story, but he has these short stories too. And the one that actually is like stuck with me the most is about a dwarf, like a small person who's he's a carnival sideshow attraction and goes into this house of mirrors, and it's sort of like experience he has in the house of mirrors. And it's just, all of Bradbury's writings, he has his limitations, but he's basically like a very humanistic writer. And so, he uses this character and the theme of carnival mirrors to talk about the experience we all have, right, of being an outsider and of seeing the worst of ourselves and seeing the best of ourselves in different ways in different mirrors. And that, that's like a big theme, if you play the game, this idea of mirrors and reflections and distortions. And again, this is why I say it's hard to see where one of us stopped and the other one started, because in my mind, it's like this is the narrative I had to tell following that, my grandparents' death. But all of this Bradburyana and the symbolism that came from that wouldn't have existed without Vic's desire to set it in a carnival. And now the game is like inextricably interwoven with those images, not just the visuals, but the narrative images too.
Well, everybody run right now, get it in their wish list, get it in their computers, and play Strangeland. Like I said, it's that time of the year.
It's a great price, under $20. It's a beautiful game, well worth your time. Go pick it up.
I think the funniest thing about, and sorry to interrupt the process, but like I think the funniest thing about Strangeland is that it really reminds me of Silent Hill 2, specifically like the main plot. And the funniest thing is I always thought that was like a big nod to Silent Hill 2. And then, when I made like a tweet when we were releasing the game, Mark, I believe, messaged me and said, I've never played Silent Hill 2, which explains...
I didn't even know what it was about. It turns out it's like significant thematic overlap. Probably if I had heard of the plot of Silent Hill 2, I would have gone a different direction with Strangeland.
I feel like you could say that about everything. Well, that's artistic in the world nowadays. It's been done at some point or to a certain extent. So don't feel bad about that at all.
It's all in the execution anyway. I mean,
Indeed.
Well said. Well, gentlemen, again, we really appreciate you coming on and showing off the game, talking about Strangeland, talking about your past experiences, and hopefully we get a little bit more from you guys in the future.
A lot far in the future, given how long our dev cycles are, but I think we have some more games in us still.
Good.
Gentlemen, you have a wonderful day.
Thanks so much for chatting. That was great fun.
Thanks for having us on.
Have a great night.